This is the plaintiff, Michael. He says he purchased a boat from the defendant, who told him it was in good running condition. Then he finds out it needs $4,400 worth of electrical and engine work. So he's suing. This is the defendant, Warren Lee Baker. He says the plaintiff bought a 30-year-old boat in good condition. He gave him a good deal, and the plaintiff got what he got. He's accused of being all wet.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket, the plaintiff says he was taken advantage of by the defendant who sold him a boat that wasn't seaworthy. But the defendant says he gave the guy a deal of a lifetime and knew what he was getting into. It's the case of glug, glug, glug. You're a crook, bub.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Mr. Michael, you bought a boat from Mr. Baker, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
What kind of boat did you buy?
It's a 1988 Proline center console. It's
okay, and how much did you pay for it?
He had it up for $5,000. We agreed to $4,400.
All right, now did you test drive the boat before you bought it?
It was in his yard, so I didn't get a chance to. But he did finally get it up and running.
Well, but you could arrange to test drive a boat, right? It's in his yard. You can't test drive it in his yard, but you can turn it on in his yard, right? Did you turn it on? Did he turn it on? Did anything go on? Did he?
He did get the engine to run, yes.
Okay. And you didn't arrange for a run on the water to see how the boat worked before you bought it?
We never did.
Okay. Well, he doesn't care about doing that. That would be the buyer who would want to do that. It's not, we
Right.
never did, but it's really, that's kind of the thing that you as a buyer would want to do, right? Because you want to know you're not buying a pig in a poke. So what happens? You pay him the money, and one of the things that had attracted you. Now, tell me about the advertisement. What did the advertising say?
I have the advertisement right here from Craigslist, and it says, this boat is in great condition, rigged for fishing, new electronics and stereo. The outboard engine on the C drive bracket runs great. Brand new steering helm and cables, brand new throttle cables. The deck is solid, 100% solid, no soft spots, and trailer is in good condition, ready to pull down the road.
All right, so you took the boat, you paid for it, and then when did you decide to actually have a mechanic take a look at it? Which also should happen before you buy the boat, but...
We were in the middle of selling our house, so I needed to put it in a storage facility for about 2 weeks. They repair, storage, and sell boats. And while they had it for 2 weeks, I asked them if they could do a tune-up on it so it would be up and running well. After about... I believe it was about 10 days that they had it. They called me and said that there was a lot more wrong than just doing a tune-up on the boat. So that day I went down there to go look at it and go over everything that they gave me a checklist for. The steering arm completely rusted through and is not connected to the engine anymore. So they have to completely tear down the whole engine to have that replaced. And that's everything that's wrong with the boat, not including electronics.
Mr. Baker, your ad says brand new steering helm and cables. What's a steering helm?
It's the actual steering mechanism under the wheel. I think the mechanical part of the steering that the cable hooks to, that, to the actual motor itself.
It also says new electronics. What's your definition of new? Because I've seen some pictures, and supposedly the electronics on this boat don't work. And that's what, in fact, the folks verify.
I bought the boat because it's a solid boat to fix up for my 3 boys. It's a solid boat. At the time that I was doing all the work, putting all the money in it, I put new electronics, which was a marine radio.
What's at the time? When did you put in new electronics?
It's probably been a couple of years ago. I built, did all this stuff for my 3 sons, a safe boat, new bottom finder, new marine radio, new stereo.
None of the electronics on the boat work. None. And I don't know that 3 years ago is new. I don't know about that. I mean, I don't, did the discussion ever come up how new was? You sold this boat as is. And Mr. Wagner, when someone sells you a boat as is, it's really incumbent upon you to find out what is wrong with it before you buy it, and you can't whine about it later. The exception to an as is sale is when you start making claims in the ad. That is considered an express warranty. If I say I just put 4 new tires, brand new tires, they can't be 3-year-old tires. I'm lying because when you say new has a very express definition. It's not like subject. It's not like saying, oh, drives like a dream, and that's subject to interpretation. New means new, and none of the electronics worked. Tell me, Mr. Michael, how is it that you did not know that the electronics didn't work? Didn't you turn stuff on or whatever when he turned on the motor?
Both batteries were completely dead in the boat. And I went to go look at it. So the best that he could do was use a charger to get the engine working so I could see that the engine was working. The other battery.
But that's not the best you can do. The best you can do is tell the man to put it in the water, right? Charge it and put it in the water. The best you could do is walk away and go buy a different boat. But that's not what you did. Knowing all this stuff, you still bought that boat, right? Yes. Knowing that you could test nothing and not see how it runs and not have a mechanic look at it and buy it as is, you still bought it, right?
I did.
Yeah. And the irony is you say you know nothing about boats.
I know how to drive boats, but I'm not a mechanic, so I don't know how to do engine work.
You were in the Coast Guard.
Right. That's why I know how to drive boats, but I don't know how to repair engines.
Okay, but you know enough to know that things go wrong and that you should, have it looked at and, all right.
Definitely. I thought
Mr. Baker, do you have the receipts for the electronics so that I could see how old the electronics are?
No, Your Honor, I do not. That was, in that ad, if those were new, is when I rebuilt the boat. They were new, and as in Florida, it sats in salt.
Everything was new at some point, honey. I was new at some point. That doesn't mean I'm 20, okay? You have to be honest in your advertisements. You can't say it's new when it's 3 years old and sitting outside. You just can't, because that guy was under the impression that he was buying a boat with fully functioning electronics. Now, if he was complaining that they weren't that great, that's one thing. But according to the shop, none of it worked. None. And I don't think that that's okay. The electronics in this case amount to $444.62. And I'm going to order you to pay that. I am not going to order him, however, to pay you back $4,400 and let you return the boat. When you buy something as is, unless he makes you a promise that he breached, unless he makes an express warranty like all the electronics are new, and you find out that they're not, because none of them worked, and he's now confessed that they're 3 years old, all right? Unless he does something like that, you don't get your money back because you were not thorough. You see? When you're buying a boat that's 22 years, I know it was old enough to vote. I knew it was old enough to drink. I just wasn't quite sure how old it was. There's going to be problems with it. That is when you have a mechanic look at it so that you know if you're, how deep into this you're willing to get. You didn't do that. That's on you. The receipt clearly says as is. So I'm finding in your favor, but only in the amount of the electronics, which I find to have been an express warranty. Good luck, everybody. $444.62. Verdict for the plaintiff.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So presumably the plaintiff has learned something about buying a 20-plus-year-old boat. Mr. Baker, the defendant, you've got to give him back $440-some. Are you okay with that? I mean, he was suing for $4,500. You're kind of lucky. What do you think?
It is what it is. An old boat, stuff sits around, burns up, salt water.
Well, listen, thank you very much. Sorry, but that money you've got to give him back. Okay. Michael, let me ask you, have you learned anything about buying a 30-year-old boat?
Take somebody with me that knows about engines.
Okay. Well, good luck to you. Thank you very much.
Any judge or jury is going to make a big distinction between specific representations about electronics on a boat being brand new and ready to roll and just puffery about, it's a cream puff. It's a really nice boat. It's in great shape. It runs.
Right.
Right? And that's what really hung up the defendant in this case regarding the electronics and the judgment.
Yeah. I mean, his answer is, well, it was new at one point.
Everything is. Time has this way of creeping up on us. You're like, oh, I got a brand new radio in that boat. And all of a sudden you think, and you're like, oh, it's a couple years old.
Right.
And it's sitting out in that salt air.
Right.
And nothing lasts very long in that kind of air. But the bigger picture here is, my God, sea trial the boat. Get it in the water. Make sure it floats.
I know.
And you can actually drive away in it a little bit.
I mean, it's like buying a car without driving it.
Right. And this guy.
Oh, it was a real hassle to put it in the water. Oh, well, how's the hassle now? How's that working out for you?
Right. And Mike's a coastie. He's a Coast Guardsman.
He's a coastie, and he didn't put it in the water.
Put it in the water. You're supposed to know about those things. And maybe he would have come out a little bit better.
I'll say.
In the end.
So Chris wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, I've lived in my apartment building for many years and have recently become wheelchair bound. Does my building have to accommodate me, or do I have to move? A really good question. I think the first thing you need to do is you need to check your city and your state online and see what kind of wheelchair access is required by law. It varies from city to city, state to state. And you need to know what the ground rules are for you. But if the law provides it, that you have a right to it, what I would do is I would go to the landlord and present that to him. And if it doesn't provide that, I would still go to the landlord and appeal to a sense of decency. We'll see you next time.